I don't think that they're equally bad. I don't know. I don't know if I'd agree with that. So I would say that there are issues with the far left and the far right. I guess from an outcomes perspective, if the far right got what they wanted, it would be comparably bad to what the. So I don't even know if I could say that. So no, I can't say that. Okay, so let's look at it from different ways. Ideally, ideologically, the far right hates all the far right, especially in America, is like all white people. So if they got what they wanted, like everybody would be a slave or dead or not in this country. That is like actually a toxic idea, and it also will destroy society by like just forcefully pushing non-white people out of it. So it's terrible. Far left people ideally want to implement communism, which is like well-intentioned. So like their ideology is like well-intentioned, but the implementation of communism is going to lead to like some kind of an authoritarian government. I'm not saying we can't get to communism, but like this kind of like anarcho, like let's do it tomorrow kind of communism is like not going to happen. You really have to do it in a more progressive manner and take the steps to move forward. I would rather be friends with a far leftist than a far right winger. So I just don't. I don't agree that they're just as bad. I don't know. Yeah, no. The far right thinks it's well intentioned. It doesn't really matter. They think it's well intentioned for white people. There's no race prescription on the far left. Like, it's a little different. Is communism a realistic approach? It potentially could be if we had a more empathetic society. That's how I would say. I don't think that we're ready for it. I don't think we'll ever be ready for it. But if we ever were, it would take a lot of social conditioning. Yeah, no. I think that people like, yeah, no, it's like I don't know, like both of these. No, I mean, I don't know. I don't like. This is like really bad. The far right's really bad. Like these people are really bad. These people are well intentioned, but I think that they don't necessarily have like the optics. These people on the far right also still have power within our systems. These people are kind of just flopping around in high school, and then once they're 30, they kind of change their ideology because they experience like life. What's up? What did you want to contest? What's
So I think we're horribly strawmanning and willfully misinterpreting
Oh
the
no.
goals of the far right to be able to paint them in our head as a
What?
worse group to feel more superior in our more left wing beliefs.
Wait,
In
hold on,
reality,
hold on. Let me just before is what you're saying the far right isn't as bad as I painted them out to be?
yo, I'm saying that we're painting the far right as worse to justify seeing the far left, as
What's
not as bad.
So what you're saying to me is that the far right isn't as bad as I said and the far left is worse than I said?
No, I'm saying that
Uh,
we're painting the far right worse to see the far left as not as
so
bad.
I'm not trying to like push you. The reason I'm reframing it in a different light is because like what you're telling me is that we are saying the far right isn't as bad as I'm saying it is. You know what I
Yeah,
mean?
so like the thing is, the far right consists of more than just like white nationalists. You said there are like black supremacists, but the overwhelming like massive the mass narratives within
Uh-huh.
far right circles are those of like ethnic inclusion as a bad thing, multiculturalism as a bad thing, but the belief
Okay.
that culture is good. And for example, obviously, besides like certain groups of Nazis, the majority of the far right will hold things like the Africa for Africans, Europe for Europeans
Okay,
type thing.
I understand what you're like. I know what you're talking about. Like there are people. I guess you would consider those like when I people ask me about far right and far left. I always think the farthest right and the farthest left. I get what you're saying. Like there are probably a good chunk of people on the like our farther right that don't like other groups of people, but just believe that they should just stick to their own. They don't want them to
Yeah,
necessarily
exactly.
die. Sure.
But
Okay.
but
That's
but we're
sure.
viewing the far right through its absolute worst, but the
Okay.
far left through its average.
Okay,
Because
all right.
just
So
because the
what's the
average,
far left? Like to me, oh, I'll
the
say the
far
far
left
the or the
average.
hold on. The farthest. Well, are we doing averages or are we doing because the average far left are like 19-year-old kids or like 13-year-old kids that
Yeah,
don't know what the fuck they're
19-year-old
talking.
kids, and the average far right person is somebody who like went down the,
Sure.
feeling isolated as like a white person and chose to like,
Maybe.
believe that we need to
I don't know that
have the
all
lymphatic
whites
system, right?
nationalists are just like a victim of circumstances in the sense of being like ostracized by
Right. No, they're
traditional
not. They're not. They're
society.
not just a
I
victim.
don't.
They are horrible people in their own. But
Okay.
like the average person there isn't like trying to doesn't like want ethnic genocide just because there are other people closely akin to them in political beliefs that do want that. In the
Okay.
same way, like the farthest left is like vehemently anti-Semitic, and as a Jew, it really
Are they?
radiates a lot of Jewish people away from the left.
Wait, what?
And
I'm. This is very new to me, so I'm
oh
skeptical.
yeah,
The
so
far
there's
left is
there's a lot.
anti-Semitic. What do you mean? Like, what do we have?
Yeah, so a
What's
lot of the
the?
time, leftists will equate Jews with like the stereotypes of them being rich,
I
with
never
being
heard that.
colonizers.
Is that
It's
is?
it's very
Uh,
blatant. There's
I
this
don't know.
organization called Black Hammer Org. They are
Okay.
a pretty big organization, but one of their for Holocaust Memorial Day, they had a campaign called I forgot the name of the campaign, but one of the things they made is they made a bunch of infographics about how Anne Frank is a white Becky and how she was a colonizer and that we need to shut up about Anne Frank and denying the severity of the Holocaust, saying, "Oh, 6 million Jews died, but 100 million Africans did," right? And this type of thing is runs very deeply within extremely far left circles, where a recreation of the similar types of bad beliefs
Well,
that are shared within
sure.
the far
Can
right
I
get
just ask?
recreated. And so I think,
Yeah. I'm sorry. I don't mean to cut you off. So when we
yeah,
say so, I don't know because it's very new to me. I've never heard this before. Also, what in any time that I hear somebody say something, or the first thing I think of when somebody says, "Oh, 6 million Jews died, but 100 million Africans," you said, to me, that's less trying to invalidate Jewish people and more trying to get us to widen our scope to care about more than just different,
yeah,
basically, what we
sure.
consider
So
white
yeah,
people,
you
other
can
white people, I guess. Trying to not be so
you
white
can
centric in our views, I guess. I'm meant to care more about
right,
Africa
right.
because we don't.
Well, thing is, Jews aren't just white. Even if we're going off the idea that
Sure,
Jews
that's
are
fair.
white, like the majority of Jews are not Ashkenazi, which is from the diaspora group of
Sure. Well, no.
Jews
Well,
in
I know
Europe.
that like Ashkenazi Jews, those are ethnic Jews, right?
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah, yeah.
Well, it's an ethnicity of Jews,
Yeah, right. But like,
or
I would say,
yeah,
I'm
right,
assuming most of the Jewish people that were killed in World War II were like
yeah.
Polish
No, they,
Jews,
they
and they were white Jews, right? So what I had said, yeah, right, same
right,
thing. Like,
but the thing is, it's not coming at a widening our scope because they at the same time, there's plenty of leftist groups who have attended meetings with Holocaust deniers, and further themselves
okay,
downplayed and sometimes even just outright denied the Holocaust, comparing it to how the West, as in the U.S. and other Western powers, fabricate stories in order to like justify imperialism or justifying horrible things against doing horrible things to other countries. So I think if we represent the far left absolute worst, its absolute most extremes, to be equal and to be warranted in describing the far right and its
okay.
absolute
So
extremes who want like ethnic cleansing
sure.
and
Well,
expulsion and like
yeah.
slavery.
Uh-huh.
At that point, we come to the conclusion that the horseshoe theory is correct. But if we
Well,
go off of the
so can
average
I?
person,
So first of all, I just want to say, like, again, like, I've never heard this before. Maybe that's my own ignorance, but I will say is that fundamentally being far left isn't about hating Jewish people. Like, that's not something you,
neither is
hold
far
on,
right.
hold,
Like,
well, we were just talking about how people want to have like ethnic differences and to like separate yourself from different people. So based on the
yeah,
ideology
well,
of
no,
somebody
because
on,
they'll base that a lot of the time. It's most often based off of like thinking that
well,
the interaction of cultures hurts that culture, and in the end,
that is seems to be that's a very nice framing because like far right people they may think that like interaction with other cultures isn't a good thing, but it's mostly because they think their the culture is the best and other people should stay away. Like, and there might be
sure,
a lot of
that
anti.
might
Well,
exist,
hold on.
but
There
if
might
we're
be
going
a
off of the average,
sure,
we
but
have like
hold on. There might be a lot of anti-Semitism in the far left. I'm not saying that there's not. I've never heard of it before, so I'm a little skeptical. But it's not inherent to left-wing ideology to be anti-Semitic, where it is inherent to right-wing ideology to be anti-Semitic.
Um, not necessarily. There's even far right groups, and even like the revisionist Zionism, which itself is far right. So like there's no inherent trait within the far
Sure. So I'm
right
assuming that
that
far.
seems
Okay.
to
Well, that
be
far right group
competing for
is like a
truth.
Jewish group, though, right? It's just far right for that
There's
Jewish group.
also like alongside that there are plenty of right-wing Zionists, not Jewish and or not Zionist, but themselves they believe in like things like the inferiority of Arab racism,
Okay. Right. Right.
but
Right.
the
Okay.
vast majority
So.
is Israel,
Right.
right?
Okay.
Like,
Right.
and
So.
they prefer Jews because they think they're a better
Sure.
group of people.
So. Right. When we talk about far right and far left, I was talking about it from like an American perspective. But yeah, as you leave America, there's still far right and far left groups. All right. So obviously, a far right group in a heavily like Jewish area is going to be far right Jewish, of course. But like generally,
This is
does
global, yeah, but sure.
what happened?
This is global, like
Sure,
these
yeah,
types of
they're
beliefs.
generally people who believe in keeping to their own because they're superior to other people.
Sure.
That's not
Then
inherent
that's
to leftist
it's
ideology.
still a pivot from the point. But like the average, if
Well,
the
how do we
average
quantify
far
like
right
the
person
average
got
far
their
right
views,
person?
yeah, if we're going off the average far right
But
person,
how do we
they're
go?
like
Well,
the
no, what
the
does that mean? Like, what
society.
is the average? Like, you're saying average as like what? How do you know that's the average? Like, what have we measured to find out
Obviously, we
that
can't make like an absolute claim on like an
I,
average far right
I
person,
know that's what I'm saying.
but
It just seems like the framing is very positive for right wingers in this case.
yeah, because I think that by not framing it as fairly as we do, we give like a justification for viewing the left in such a positive lens and not being hypercritical and being skeptical of
I just
these
feel like
groups.
those things can be mutually exclusive. Like we can maintain the idea that far right ideology is racist and toxic, and like while also criticizing far left ideology. But again, like I don't know, what would you call it? Race realization is not an inherent trait to the far left.
I mean, it's not inherent, but like again, neither is it
Yes.
within the far right. Like
Well, yes, it is. It
obviously,
literally is. Yes, it is. Literally, far
um,
right wing people want to isolate themselves because they think that they're superior in whatever culture or whatever identification they have. It is inherent to far right wing ideology to be like anti-Semitic, unless you're Jewish.
like, and there's non-Jewish, non-anti-Semitic far right wingers.
I
Like
just,
the the
again,
whole
like
the whole
fundamentally,
founding of fascism is the suppression of the individual and and a
wait,
lot of the
of
time
what? Of
it's a
whatism?
rejection of like the origins of fascism.
Okay.
They lie in opposition to even the ideas of race because they reject what's the word
So are we saying that
um
fascism is left wing?
no, I'm not saying it's left,
Okay.
but it is collectivist. It's not left wing though. Collectivism isn't necessarily a left wing idea, but it believes it rejects materialism. And one of the claims that a lot of fascists have is that even the conceptualization of things like race and ethnicity are bad because it is suppressing the collective
Probably.
um,
So you're saying that far right
to
wing
materialism.
people don't adhere to the concept of race?
No, I'm saying there's plenty of right wingers who do not.
I don't know if that's true. It seems like they're always galvanizing over one unnecessary identity.
Perhaps it's because of
Regardless
a
of
it,
that's like
it's
far
a
that's
feeling of
fundamental right wing
insecurity.
ideology is incredibly it's like incredibly traditional and like exclusionary of whatever other people don't identify with whatever their identification is.
That may be the case a lot of the time online
I think it's
versus
all I think it's probably all the time. I don't like what it's I don't know. Like I understand like you're saying hey we should call it the left more, but this seems less like a hey let's focus on the left more, and it's more of like a hey let's make sure we paint the right in a positive light.
I think we should not strawman the right to be able to
I don't think that
view
we
them
are
as
strawmanning the right. So the right fundamentally want to sow division, right? They specifically want like whatever identity they are, whether they're white, black, whatever you would consider Jewish, it doesn't matter. They want to maintain that identity and separate themselves from the rest of the world because they feel that they are superior. Like that is fundamental right wing logic, like far right wing logic.
even if I conceded that, I think the point stands that we kind of strawman the far right in order to
I don't know. I think
There's
that
two
we can.
different
I
things
think that
that
we
we
can
can have.
criticize the far left more intensely without trying to paint the far right in a better light.
We can't critique something we don't understand, don't try to understand. And we come
Uh
to
huh.
a very good conclusion on what the far right is without any nuance. We're simply giving light to more people, like waking up from their shell, seeing, oh, this isn't even what, they're not even taught, they're not even believing in what these people are talking about. Um,
Mm-hmm.
or people who are critiquing the far right. They don't know. They're not even talking about the far right. This is entirely different, and it only indoctrinates people more to the far right to view them excruciatingly negatively, and when it's inaccurate,
Well, what is the far
when it's
right to you?
accurate.
I'm very confused. Like, what is the far? You so far what you've told me the far right is that people that want to basically keep to their own, but they don't want to kill those other people, but they just think that they're superior and want to be left alone.
I mean, the far right in terms of like social phenomena has been like a reactionary, like a rolling reactionary
So
movement.
now what we're
And I
saying
think
is that
that
the far right exists because of the far left.
no, not because of the
So,
far left. It's
so
because of a reaction to society or like
what?
progression in society is
So
what
you're so
drives
people are
people to the
driven
far right.
towards the right because they're ostracized from society.
No, no.
So what are
So,
you
for
trying to
example,
say?
like the rise, like Trumpism and those types of
See,
beliefs,
Trumpism.
arose, yeah, from like populism
Okay.
and like isolationism, and that type of thing that Trump
Right.
pushed.
So then what
Um,
you're yeah. So then those people, you're saying that those people went
yeah,
far
that
right.
came out of like
So
that came out of
I disagree with what you're saying and the framing that you're saying it. This makes the assumption that the majority of Trump supporters are like far right. Most of people who support Trump aren't
no,
far
no,
right.
no.
People who were
No, I'm not
already
saying that
racist.
Trumpism and Trump supporters are two different things. So I should have made that
I
clear.
don't think that people were pushed farther. I mean, there's probably some people pushed farther right, due to some of the things Trump was saying, I guess. But like most, like I wouldn't say that like it was a huge phenomenon to push people to the far right. It may have made people more conservative, but we're talking about the far right. I don't think a ton of people were like, yeah, you know what? Based on what Trump is telling me, I really do not want to associate with black people. If you think that like Trump was subtextually saying don't talk to black people, then Trump is pretty racist, which is a bad thing, and it's anti-American.
Yeah, Trump is anti-American. That's
I mean, that's a conversation we can have. I don't think that he's necessarily. I mean, do you think he's a racist? I think he's an idiot.
the he was anti-American.
I don't know if he's
The
anti-American. I
the
think
foundation of America has always been against things like protectionism and isolation,
okay,
and as
sure.
especially since the Second World War has been centered around uh,
Uh-huh.
maintaining and using the power we have from the society we've built
Uh-huh.
to further that those types of ideals elsewhere.
What the hell are we
So
talking?
I
Are
think
we
yeah,
talking about like pushing our ideologies on other places? Are you saying that's anti-American?
no,
Well, that's I don't think that's necessarily what Trump thing because he wanted to get rid of globalism. He wanted to be more American centric. So sure, I guess in that isolationist idea, sure. Though I would say he's more isolationist for Americans, not necessarily minorities. But he's really just an idiot that doesn't know how to talk. But anyway, I don't particularly to get back on the topic. It just seems interesting that you are painting the far right as a positive, more positive force. It's like I don't know. It just seems like you want the average far right winger to just be people who are like, hey, I don't think that we should. Hey, listen, as a white guy, I just hate black people and don't want them to be around. They're inferior and they're inherently like loser. Like
no,
that's
no,
kind of.
no. Of course not.
But
I think
that's
the
what,
far
by
just
your logic, is the
but
average right winger is somebody who's like a some kind of a race realist that just wants black people to all go back to Africa in America specifically, and that would be what far right people are. They want all of the people that aren't them to leave.
that may be the case. But the thing is, again, if we use the very, very far outstretches of like a certain group
Uh
to
huh.
critique that entire group, like if
Okay.
for a lot of young kids when they were like presented with Stalin horrible killed 100 million, and when they finally found out, oh, Stalin wasn't really even a communist, so the USSR wasn't communist.
We're talking
Oh,
about
all of these
like Stalin. What are they
hmm?
called? Stalin. You're talking about Stalin sympathizers. Is that what you're talking about?
Yeah, Stalinist, right? So when like
Or
the American
apologists?
yeah Stalinist whatever when they painted communism through the worst of it Stalinists and people like Stalin ended up when like the truth or like understanding of it was finally broken for like a lot of young people
Uh-huh.
within the U.S. and like a lot of the youth today, and they're like, oh wait, but this wasn't even the issue. What are they? Their issues? There are no issues really with these ideals. In fact, it's even better than they thought. It wasn't just simply you know everyone stars, blah 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 blah, right? When they
Okay.
finally broke through that like layer of misinformation, they didn't have the proper like issues with those ideas presented to them because they only had those very surface level inaccurate issues. And then
Okay.
the exact same thing applies, and if it is not already, will definitely in the future apply to the far right. If we view the far right as all these Nazis, when somebody who is a far right person who isn't a Nazi, who does hold these views, say not expulsion. There's a lot of there's a lot of people of color who are really far right because and even they don't believe creating their own ethno state and like the superiority of their race. They
Hmm.
simply believe a lot of the similar things like paleoconservatism. And when we horribly attack their ideals and misconstrue them, um, to fit an understanding that is easier for us to critique. When that layer of understanding is finally broken,
Hmm.
it only makes more people believe that. And I think that we shouldn't seek that because we understand how bad these beliefs are, and we should properly look on how to understand them and how to fight them. And I
Okay.
think that's what
I think
changing this
I
outlook.
understand what you're saying. And I'm like that was your pitch. I'm gonna get my last pitch and I'm just gonna move on because I think that we both said what we need to say. I think I understand what
Hmm.
you're saying. I get it. I think that some things are a little uncomfortable to me. The things that bother me the most specifically is that like what your point of an average far right wing person is very subjective. Like we said, like we can't figure out what the average truly is, but that's like an interesting average. Whereas your average leftist is something that's like worse than. I mean, I would say that your average, if you're going to say your average right winger is somebody who's just like, hey, I kind of want to be a little bit more, I don't know, since like self-centered or whatever, or then like why is your average leftist like a Stalin apologist? Like I would say your average leftist is
No,
somebody who's pushing for like socialism.
yeah, no, that's an accurate representation. I mean,
Yeah,
obviously, like the issues with social exist and cause
I can't really hear you too
society to
much.
exist, and that's why I think that both are
So
in some senses
So you're cutting out a little
morally
bit.
bad. Hmm?
Really quick. So you were just cutting out a little bit. Really quick. So just so I want to say, like, what exactly is like your political ideology?
I am a neoliberal,
Okay. So what does that mean?
um, like uh, free trade, open borders,
So like you're more
like
conservative leaning,
social
right?
liberalism. Yeah.
Okay. Interesting.
Yeah.
All right.
Cool.
Well, it
Thank
was an interesting conversation. I'll
you.
sit on it for a little bit. I'm not sold that the idea that like anti-Semitism is inherently associated with the left-wing ideology.
Not, it's
Um,
not, but it's often. It
But like,
often
I
is.
get what you're saying. Oftentimes, it's like from what you're saying, and I've never seen an example of this. But from what you're saying, oftentimes there seems to be like an association of anti-Semitism with the left, or the far left, what you'd
Mhm.
say. Okay,
Yeah.
I'll definitely food for thought. So I
Thank you.
appreciate you stopping by. All
Have a
right,
good day.
you too.
Yeah,
Take care.
you're welcome.
Hey everyone, if you like that video, don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe. And don't forget to follow my Twitch, Instagram, Twitter, Discord, and TikTok. All links are in the description. Also, check out my Patreon if you'd like to support me even more than you already do. Thank you so much, everyone. I love you all.